When you got 800 Americans dying every week? Why don't we obsess about that? 800 Americans because they can't afford health insurance in the richest country in the world. They can spend $750 billion of your tax dollars for a Pentagon budget and wars in Afghanistan and Iraq and supporting the Israeli military juggernaut to brutalize and occupy the West Bank and of Palestine. And we're dying here every day, the thousands that are dying. Very silent deaths, quiet, nobody trumpets for them. They don't get buried in Arlington National Cemetery. They just made the country go every day. That limits your expectation level of yourself. And you never want to do that. You must have a higher estimate of your own significance. And in the 19th century, they got rid of the ban on investing or owning other corporations. They got rid of the 10-year or the limited term. They got rid of any kind of good behavior standard. And after the Civil War, there was further expansion of the charter. But Delaware thought that they could get state revenue. Indeed, at one time, almost a third of Delaware's revenue came from these fees of chartering corporations. And many corporations ran to Delaware from other states to get chartered, including the largest corporations we know, like General Motors, of course, DuPont, large New York banks are chartered in Delaware because of the permissiveness of the law itself and the permissiveness of the judicial interpretation. The merchant class does not allow enough room for other values, civic values, health, safety, forms of respect, opportunity, etc. That's why they said don't give too much power to the merchant class. It's so highly motivated to pursue a commercial objective that it runs roughshod. It will engage over the years and decades and centuries in slavery, in serfdom, in massive poisoning of human environments, and destruction of habitats, and exploitation and wasteful practices that it loads on innocent people, called externalities, and in the process produce a lot of wealth, a lot of production, but doesn't produce distribution of that wealth or production without the rule of law, without other forces that are countervailing to the driven objectives of ever larger corporations. Other forces basically saying, you will not have slaves, you will not have child labor, you will respect the environment. And the corporations being expedient, if they see they can't get away with it, that they're going to be prosecuted, they're going to be fined, they're going to lose their subsidies, they're going to be exposed to reputational damage, sometimes comply. Sometimes they comply permanently. You have to do your homework. The fundamental mistake you made is basically to say that even though the Democrats aren't all that great, the Republicans are worse, therefore we should let them both become worse every 4 years under the pull of the corporations and shut up. But you see, what you don't understand is that my motivation comes from those people out there that both parties are ignoring, and they're being disrespected and unemployed and uninsured and harmed and not protected from avoidable violence. These corporate law firms who are the power brokers for a great deal of the criminality and the Wall Street shenanigans that have been going on. They are the brilliant geniuses of facilitating the subjugation of the law by raw corporate power, all in the name of the law. But by and large, the drift of global corporatism is concentrated power defined by commercial standards and values running roughshod over the far more important civic and spiritual values. Ask yourself, there are 3 branches of government in the states. What do you think the court budget is for the judiciary? It's less than 2%. Why are we rationing justice? You remember Learned Hand's dicta on that? If you have a democracy, thou shalt not ration justice. These giant corporations every day engage in strategic planning. They're planning our genetic future, our financial future, our invasion of privacy future, our workplace future, our election future, our government future. They have a lust for control that's inherent in the large corporate dynamic, a lust for control, maximum control. They must have control. And they're controlling both parties. Is there anything that they're not after? They want to control our natural resources that we own ourselves on the public lands. They're in control of $5 trillion of worker pension funds that belong to the workers. They're in control of the public airwaves that belong to us as a commonwealth, legally, not metaphorically, over which the radio and TV broadcast their insipid, stupid programs.
If people feel they can't do something, they won't want to do it. The people have got to develop a new style, a new kind of citizenship, where they don't just look at it as something you do at election time. You look at it as an obligation, as a day-to-day involvement. The ultimate executive power doesn't have very much power, and that's the point. Even the president finds himself very, very restricted in what he can do by the special interests that have insinuated themselves into government as well as around government.
What special interests? Are you saying that the president is influenced by big business?
Yes. For example, suppose the president wanted to cut out the oil import quota and to eliminate the oil tax depletion allowance. The first thing that would happen would be that the campaign funds for the Republican Party from the oil industry would begin to dry up. The second thing that would happen is that other industries would begin making representations to the White House on behalf of the auto industry. The thing would build up in a kind of escalation of pressure. And the intricate quid pro quos between business and government, which keep government in such bay, would begin to go into effect. The issue basically now is whether we can build up enough democratic power outside of government in order to permit increasingly those inside of government to uphold their oath of office and perform in the public interest.